Okay, everybody settled? Do you guys all have coffee, water? I think Kevin's got some tomatoes he's going to throw at me.
I'm gonna get some water.
Okay, some water?
Yeah.
It's a good idea. Tomatoes and water. There's a worse way to go out. Okay, so once again, welcome to Celebrate Recovery. Tonight we are going over lesson 21. Lesson 21 is relapse, and a recap for anybody that does not keep track of these things the way Kevin and I and Dion do, or anybody else that does. We start the first week of the year with lesson 1. So it's lesson and then testimony. Lesson, testimony, lesson, testimony. So by the end of the year, there are 26 lessons. So there are 5 lessons left. So we are getting towards the end, and this is relapse. So this is a very important lesson because, as you can see with the secondary handout here, we're going to go over the different types of relapses. Relapses happen to everybody. So we're better off preparing for them. We're better off knowing they're going to come, whether it's an emotional relapse, an actual relapse, a relapse in your head. It's going to happen, and it's not a reason to freak out. It definitely needs to be addressed and taken care of, but it's nothing to freak out about. So I've had friends who have relapsed, and they go, well, no sense in trying anymore at all, and that's not the point. That's why we're here talking about it, to go, okay, it's going to happen, so what do I do from there? You know, what are the steps to take? How do I get back on track? And then it's a little hiccup. It's not like the end of a race or anything. So anyway, lesson 21, relapse. Principle 7 is reserve a daily time with God for self-examination, Bible reading, and prayer in order to know God and His will for my life and to gain the power to follow His will. Step 11 is sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and power to carry that out. And the Bible verse is Colossians 3:16. Let the message of Christ dwell among you richly. So, as I said, we're on lesson 21. We have worked through a lot of our steps. We're just going through inventory in the step studies right now. But if you are tracking along with the lessons, and we've already bypassed that. We've gone through a lot of this stuff. And so we are looking to maintain our recovery at this point. So coming up right around the corner, especially it's probably for pretty much everybody, holidays are tough. So right now we are 4 weeks away from Thanksgiving. We are 8 weeks away from Christmas. Is anybody panicking with that news? Okay, I'm sorry, I did not mean to bring panic into the room. At least I didn't wait until the week before to let you know. So besides all of the other holiday stuff that we have to take care of, holidays are stressful times. It doesn't matter if you're a 100% healthy individual. When you have an addiction, you start to get nervous. You start to, oh my gosh, I have to go see the family. I have to go see my parents, and they're going to judge me, and they're going to talk to me about this and this and this and this. And we're convincing ourselves 4 to 8 weeks before these holiday events are going to happen, and we're already setting the stage for us to relapse. So they're very, very stressful. Even in the best of families, holidays are stressful. So with that coming up, along with other life stressors, we're going to talk tonight about how to avoid a relapse. So tonight's acrostic is relapse. I don't know how often that happens, that the acrostic is also the same as the lesson. We'll go over these a couple times, so everybody have their pencil or pen ready. So the R in relapse stands for reserve a daily quiet time. Reserve a daily quiet time. And we'll go over them again at the end to make sure you guys got those down. E is for evaluate. L is listen to Jesus. A is alone and quiet time. P is plug in to God's power. S is slow down. And E is enjoy your growth. So we have R, reserve a daily quiet time. E, evaluate. L, listen to Jesus. A, alone in quiet time. P is plug in to God's power. S is slow down. And E is enjoy your growth.
Plug into God's power through prayer?
Plug into God's power.
Through prayer?
It says through what?
Different.
You have a different head.
Really?
Yeah.
Slow down enough to...
These are the 2000s.
I would say prayer. And then slow down long enough to, hey, I don't have all the stuff in the... It's okay.
Listen would be good.
I'm sure there's going to be more. We go over these. There's a little blurb on each of the words, so I'm sure it's going to be in there. So a little bit of dramatic pause here. You guys are going to have to wait for the to find out what the cliffhanger is. Okay. So the first letter in relapse is reserve a daily time, a quiet time with God for self-examination, Bible reading, and prayer in order to know God and His will for my life. So we know holidays, once again, are stressful, and it doesn't help that all the Hallmark movies come on, right? How many, okay, men, the women are not judging us here. How many of us secretly enjoy a Hallmark movie? Yeah. You know, and we're sitting there, yeah, my allergies are acting up, right? They're emotional, and the holiday, even watching Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, why did they make fun of him? I can't believe it. You know, it's an emotional time. We're happy to be around family. We're sad that these old family conflicts have come up. Some people like the summer, and all of a sudden it's cold. We have to dig, go into the attic or the shed and dig out the winter clothes. There's a lot of things going on that we haven't had to do the rest of the year, so it's stressful. So we know temptation is going to come. We're going to be stressed. We're going to be tempted to relapse, whatever you're relapsing for. We go back as addicts to what we know. Like, oh, this is out of my control. This is something I can control. Not true, but that's what we do. So the first step in preventing a relapse is to admit that you're going to be tempted. The worst thing we can do is go, man, this year is going to be different. Man, it's happened the last 50 years, but this year is going to be different. No, it's going to be the same. So prepare yourself. I shouldn't go over there. I shouldn't hang out by the bar, or I shouldn't get into that conversation with my dad again, because the last 50 years it's ended up with somebody yelling and screaming and somebody, screeching down the street. So work your way through these things and go, okay, I'm going to avoid that this year. I'm not going to go when that person's there, or I'm going to avoid that conversation. So anyway, Jesus was tempted the same way we were. Matthew 4, verses 1 to 11. I'm going to read this whole verse here. It says, Jesus was led into the wilderness to be tempted by Satan. For 40 days and 40 nights he ate nothing and became very hungry. Then Satan tempted him to get food by changing stones into loaves of bread. It will prove you are the Son of God, he said. But Jesus told him, no, for the scriptures tell us that bread won't feed men's souls. Obedience to every word of God is what we need. Then Satan took him to Jerusalem, to the roof of the temple. Jump off, he said, and prove that you are the Son of God. Jesus retorted, it also says not to put the Lord your God to a foolish test. Next, Satan took him to the peak of a very high mountain and showed him the nations of the world and all their glory. I'll give it all to you, he said, if you will only kneel and worship me. Get out of here, Satan. The scriptures say, worship only the Lord God, obey only him. Then Satan went away and the angels came down and cared for Jesus. So that was it. Now, the way we read it in the Bible, it was easy for Jesus. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But Jesus knew this was going to happen. We know that these events are going to be coming up. So it doesn't have to be holidays. It can be just a random Friday night. It can be a Monday morning. These temptations, you're going to see a picture. You're going to hear a song, and it's going to take you back, and we're going to be tempted to go back into our old ways. Mark 14, verse 38 says, watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Remember, being tempted is not a sin. As I said earlier, one of the handouts here, we'll talk about the different types of relapses. A lot of what happens in a relapse is in our head. And unfortunately, it starts in our head and it finishes with actions. So that's what we're trying to avoid. You're not going to avoid, I'm going to see that person. I'm going back to a high school reunion. I'm going to see that person I thought I was going to marry, and all these memories are going to, so we know that's going to happen. But it's not a sin for those things to happen. It's a sin to act on it. So temptation is not a sin. It's a call to battle. So we've all had those. Like, man, I could have handled that better. All that means, it's a time for us to plan for the next time it happens. What can I do differently? Talk to a sponsor. Talk to an accountability partner. And, hey, I have trouble with this every time this time of year comes around. How can I handle this? And so that's a time, before it happens, it's a time to plan. Anybody who's ever played sports, the coaches tell us, come on, get out there. You're going to do this time. And then you visualize it in your head, and you go, yeah, I'm going to do this and this and this. And it goes better than if you didn't plan at all. Okay, the next word in our acrostic is E for evaluate. Okay, when we evaluate our physical, emotional, relational, and spiritual health. And then this is one of those exciting lessons where we have an acrostic within an acrostic. I don't have the notes. Is heart in there?
No.
Okay. So Pastor Rick Warren added this to the lesson here, not the notes. So I'll go over it somewhat quickly. So we have to do a heart check. And what that means is, you're having a bad day. It's like, man, I really feel like calling that person. I feel like doing this. I want to get into an argument. I want to go use drugs or drink, or I want to, isolate myself. Look at yourself. Am I hurting? I don't know if you want to write. You can write this down on the side, or I can go over them again later. Am I hurting? Is something bothering me? Is something, is there a bad memory? Something hurting me? Am I exhausted? Am I not getting enough sleep? Which we just had a conversation about that with an unknown person in the room. Am I angry? Am I really upset? Am I emotional about something? Am I resentful? Am I holding on to something I need to let go of? And am I tense? So that is your heart check. If you're sitting there going, man, I'm just not feeling it today, something's bothering me, it's more than likely one of these things. I'm hurting, I'm exhausted, I'm angry, I'm resentful, or I'm tense. And when those emotions, those feelings come over our body, then a relapse is more likely to happen because we want to react and get rid of those feelings. So, in Romans chapter 12, verses 3 to 17, the Bible tells us how to react when we have those feelings. Romans says, be honest in your estimate of yourselves. Hate what is wrong. Stand on the side of the good. Love each other. Be patient in trouble. Do things in such a way that everyone can see that you are honorable. Okay. Daily practice of step 10, which is what we're in here, maintains your honesty and humility. So a lot of times I'll wake up in the morning and you just kind of feel when you wake up and you go, I don't know, I didn't sleep good. I'm kind of itchy this morning. I'm just not feeling, I don't know. Practice step 10. So step 10 is we continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Anybody who's been through AA or NA or anything and you have your nightly review, this is what we're doing, part of the nightly review. God, how did I do on this? Man, I wasn't kind to that person. I wasn't a very good driver. I was negative. I criticized everything my boss said. Before you go to bed, we get rid of that. It's like, God, help me do better next time. If you wait and do your inventory every month, we're just doing a once in inventory for our steps. But the 10th step is every single night. You sit there, and if I did something against Kevin, I could pick up the phone and go, hey, Kev, I was mocking you about tomatoes tonight, and I apologize for that. So, and then you get rid of it. And it's amazing how much better you feel and how much better you sleep when you get this stuff off your chest. Most of the time, when you're doing the nightly inventory, you don't need to call somebody. You just go, God, I could have handled that better. Help me to do better next time. And then when you do them every night, you see a pattern. Man, every single night for the last 3 weeks, I've apologized to God for being impatient. Hey, maybe that's an issue that I'm having. So your nightly review, your daily inventory is very helpful in seeing the patterns that we all have in our lives. Okay. The L in relapse, getting back to the original acrostic, is for listen. Listen to your higher power, Jesus Christ. So we need to take time out from our everyday busyness. Everyone's busy in here. Doesn't matter if you're working 2 or 3 jobs or you're just taking care of a household. There's a lot to do. We've got a lot of input. We've got 2 or 3 phones. We've got the TV on. We've got people knocking at the door. I don't know about you guys. It's probably up to 30 times a day that I'm getting texts or emails saying, vote for this person, vote for that, for this person is horrible. It's like, how do you turn it off? So when we feel overwhelmed like that, like I cannot wait until next Tuesday when this election is over, if it's over next Tuesday, but we're not here to talk about that. Listen to God. God, what do you have to say to me right now? What am I doing now that I shouldn't be doing? What am I not doing that you would like me to do? Listen to God, and if we're quiet, we'll hear him speak to us. Okay, the letter A in relapse is for alone. Alone in quiet time. The first part of step 11 says we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God. Conscious contact with God is speaking to God and listening to God. Whenever I take a trip to California, I get in my car, I turn off my stereo. And on the way there, I talk half the way to Quartzsite and just telling God what's on my mind. And then the other half of the way, from State Line to Los Angeles, I listened to God. And every single trip, I don't hear his voice, but you get these messages. I want you to do this. I want you to do this. I want you to do this. And during those drives, I never feel closer to God than during those drives. So if you consciously communicate with God, you will hear from him. He loves talking to us. We just have to slow down and let it happen. And that's very, very, very helpful for me. Okay, I know my parents are going to complain about this and they're going to criticize me for this. I love them. They're my parents. They're going to drive me crazy. And then I'll listen to God and it's like, okay, you know this is going to happen. Don't react. Change the subject. Whatever message God has for me. Okay, in principle 3, we made a decision to turn our lives and our wills over to God's care. In principle 4, we confessed our sins to him. And in principle 5, we humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. So now in principle 7, in order to keep your recovery growing, you need to have a daily quiet time with Jesus. You could do it in the car. I don't recommend doing it when you're laying down to bed because most of us will fall asleep. So if you want to sit out in the backyard, if you want to sit at your desk or at a chair somewhere, if you could do it in bed without falling asleep, then that's okay. But every single day, we're supposed to have a quiet time with God. How many times in the Bible did we read about Jesus withdrawing from the crowds, going up in the hill, and spending time with God? So if we want to be like Jesus, we should do the things that he did in the Bible. And I don't know the exact number of how many times he went off by himself, but there were a lot of those times. In Psalm 46:10, God says, "Be still and know that I am God." So be still. Focus on God. Step 11 uses the term meditation. How many of you guys meditate? A few. Okay. The definition of meditation is slow down long enough to hear God. That's obviously the definition that we use for in here. You know, it's not the Eastern practice of meditation definition, but that's what it is for Celebrate Recovery. Slow down long enough to hear God. When I first started talking to God, it would be like, "Hey God, do you think I should go to that concert tonight? What do you think?" You know, I didn't get an answer. So I didn't wait long enough. So God is barely, you know, he wants to, okay, I'm going to wait. I'm going to make you wait for that one. Let's wait. Should I do that? Come on, we're impatient. And hate to tell you this, God has more patience than we ever will. So we might be waiting a long time. There's some questions I still don't have an answer for, but God will provide those answers when I'm ready to hear the answer. Okay. So the devil will use whatever he can to disrupt your quiet time with God. How many of you guys use the Bible app, YouVersion on your phone? How many of you do the daily devotional? So I've been doing that every day this year. I would say 60% of the time, maybe more, when you sit down, it says, slow down, remove any distractions. Remove any distractions. It's like this thing is talking to me because as soon as I sit down and I go, oh, okay, God, that's a great, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I got to get the laundry. Oh, man, I got to do the lawn. God, help me to focus on, you're right, I forgot I have to take the car in. Okay, God, so help me not get distracted. Oh, I have to. The devil likes to distract us. So it takes a lot of practice and a lot of focus to really keep our thoughts and our minds on God. Okay. Psalm 1, verse 1 through 3 says, "Happy are those who find joy in obeying the law of the Lord. They study it day and night. They're like trees that grow beside a stream, that bear fruit at the right time. So when we slow down and wait for God, that's what happened to us. God grows fruit within us. Next letter in relapse is P for plug. Plug into God's power through prayer. So a lot of us ask, why did God allow this to happen to me? And God's answer is, well, did you pray and seek my will? You know, a lot of times if we would ask God, we'd get the right answers, but a lot of us don't do that. When I gave my testimony 2 months ago, whenever it was, I was guilty of, I got married without asking God if I should get married. I made a decision to move to Colorado without asking God. I switched jobs without asking God. So when we continually do this, God goes, you know, if you don't need me, I'm not going to give you any input. So obviously those decisions that I made didn't turn out well. And what am I going to do? At the time, I got angry with God. And over time, I'm going, didn't even ask God. So how can I be angry with God? I was angry with myself. So this whole slowing down, meditating, speaking to God, it works. Because since those days, my life has gotten a lot better. And I'm sure there's testimonies out there that can demonstrate how well it works for everybody. If we don't daily seek God's will for our lives, we cannot blame Him when things go wrong. Sometimes when we ask God what we should do, we also give Him the answer. Hey God, I think, I know I asked you this, but here's the direction. This is what I'm going to do. So you get it with the L, you're good. Okay, good. That's not asking God's opinion on something. So there's some things here that I'm not going to read because they're not helpful. So Philippians 4 verse 6 says, Paul tells us to pray about everything, asking for God's perfect will in all our decisions. Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God your needs, and don't forget to thank Him for His answers. So this verse says, it's His answers, it's His perfect will, it's not my answers, and it's not my perfect will. Okay, in the letter S in relapse is slow down long enough to hear God's answer. God's not a microwave or a drive-through. So we can't demand things or demand it on our own timing. God will answer us when He thinks we're ready. So after you spend time praying to God, you need to slow down to hear His answers. Our timing is flawed, and God's timing is not flawed. It's perfect. God says there's no book or chapter. It says, chapter 33, verse 33, doesn't give the book. Listen to me, keep silent, and I will teach you wisdom. What's that? Job, thank you. Job 33, verse 33. Look at that. Okay. So Philippians 4, verse 7 says, if you do this, which is presenting your request to God, you will experience God's peace, which is far more wonderful than the human mind can understand. His peace will keep your thoughts and your hearts quiet and at rest as you trust in Christ Jesus. The last letter in relapse is E for enjoy. Enjoy your growth. So we're all here tonight. That's a victory. Okay, we're getting something out of Celebrate Recovery, and we want to come back and get more of it. That's a victory. A lot of us, especially very competitive people, man, I could have done better. That was wrong. That could have been. Enjoy the small victories. We got here today. We're sober today. We're not in our addiction today. Our hurts, habits, and hang-ups are under control for the most part. Might be for 5 minutes, but enjoy that 5 minutes. because a lot of us tend to focus on the negatives only in the step study. That's why it's so important to recognize the things that are going well and the things that are not going well. Because if all we do is think about the negative, it kind of brings us down. It's like, man, I'm just a waste of time. No, wait a minute. Man, I talked to Dion today. I talked to Kevin today. I had a great conversation with John. Man, some good came out of tonight. And then that way, it'll balance anything out that didn't go particularly well. So a lot of us, me, I'm speaking to myself here, tend to be very pessimistic. So anyway, wrap up on this is it doesn't need to be a holiday for us to have relapses. It doesn't need to be a special occasion, a wedding, a birthday, the 4th of July. We can have relapses, we can have mental breakdowns on a random Tuesday morning. Analyze if you're feeling that way. You know, you wake up in a bad mood, analyze it. God will give you the answers. Hey, you didn't sleep enough last night. Hey, you went to bed without doing your inventory last night. You know, hey, you didn't apologize to that person for whatever happened. Maybe we're isolating ourselves. You know, we're sitting at home alone. There have been people that have come through these rooms and they come in here and it's the first human contact they've had for a week since last week's meeting. Get out and talk to people. We're social animals. So, and a lot of people don't like being social, which is fine, but force yourself to do it a couple times a week because, you know, this is all about human interaction. You might get some ideas from them. You might support them by showing up and going to get coffee together. I saw a movie this week. You know, anytime there are a bunch of Russians in a movie, they're all sitting at a park playing chess. I don't know why. I don't know if they love chess, or maybe they're doing it to be social. You know, their wives say, get out of the house. I'm sick of you sitting here talking to me about chess. Go to the park with your buddies and play chess for 3 or 4 hours, and I can clean the house. So I don't know why they do, but they end up at the park. Okay, so ways to avoid a relapse. Very, very practical. Pray and read your Bible daily. Make attending Celebrate Recovery and other recovery meetings a priority. You guys are here, most of you guys are here every single week, so you're making that a priority. Spend time with your family and your friends if they're safe. And if they're a trigger, then find a new family. No, you can't do that. Find new friends or limit your time with the family. And the fourth one is service. We've talked about this in the past. We would love to have more people get involved in this ceremony, in this service, whether it's greeting at the door, whether it's coming up here. I mean, you guys must be getting sick of hearing me and Kevin do lessons, at least sick of me doing it. So if you want to, you can come up here and give some of these lessons. So just get involved. It helps you, it gets you out of yourself, and it helps you feel needed. Like, man, if I don't show up, no one's going to be making the coffee or no one's going to give the lesson. So I'm not going to beg, but we would love to have more people involved. Okay, and then the last one, if you take the bonus material here, we're going to go over this fairly quickly. How many of you guys know there's more than one kind of relapse? Okay? So I used to go to AA meetings, and halfway through, man, this better get over soon because that liquor store closes at 10 o'clock. I need to get out of here. Okay? Nothing was put in my body, but mentally I had already relapsed. So that might not be wrong, but it definitely isn't right. So that's the time when you catch yourself. Wait a minute, I'm planning on relapsing. So a lot of us see that coming. So these three conditions or three topics on our page are a relapse before a relapse. So the first one is emotional relapse. So we all know whatever your hurt, habit, and hang up is, we typically know an hour, half an hour before it actually happens. And then you look back in the next day and you go, man, what happened? I didn't see that coming. Yes, you did. Were you isolating yourself? You know, were you angry at something? If you look at the list here, it says, were you bottling up emotions? Were you isolating? Were you not going to meetings? Were you going to meetings but thinking about the liquor store? Were you focusing on others? Did you have poor eating and sleeping habits? So the most common denominator of emotional relapse is poor self-care. So just analyze your behavior. We have a lot of time. Not all of it has to be spent in the Bible or in the big book or in other material. Think of ways that you can avoid an emotional relapse. A mental relapse is a craving to be a part of it. Man, I really wish I was one of those people in that movie that was at the bar or was arguing or fighting, or, oh man, they're with their husband or wife or girlfriend. I want that really badly. So wanting something that has to do with our addiction. We think about people, places, and things associated with our past habits. We ignore the consequences of our past habits. We bargain. Hey, I'll just go for 5 minutes. It'll be okay for 5 minutes. It's never 5 minutes. And then as it gets closer and closer and closer, we find ourselves planning. I used to tell my wife, we had 18 rolls of Costco toilet paper left. And it's like, we're almost out of toilet paper. I need to run down to Costco. So you'd go to Costco and buy some other things that I shouldn't have. I planned that. So, and we think we're really smart and really sneaky, but try to catch yourself on that, because it's okay to think it. Just try to cut it off before the action happens. Okay, and then a physical relapse is when an individual falls back into that hurt, habit, or hang up. A lot of times we're alone. Man, I can do this once and I'll get away with it. Man, nobody's going to see this. And so those are opportunity relapses. So what we should do, if you find yourself feeling a certain way when you're at home alone, or when you're over in this part of town, or when you're watching sports and you get angry, just be very aware of your feelings, and then you can rehearse, okay, wait a minute. Every time I watch the Suns lose, I get angry. So maybe I should either stop watching the Suns. Maybe I should expect them to lose and I won't be angry. I have nothing against the Suns, by the way, but I'm just going to keep going because I started it this way. But we know, for some of us, it might mean I'm just not going to watch sports at all. For other ones, we can go, I'm not playing for the team. I don't have family members playing for the team. It's just a game. So we can rehearse these things before they actually happen. So we have a lot more control over our relapses than we think. And the best way to practice some of these on this extra page here are to talk to your sponsor or your accountability partners. And the last page I won't go over, but things to help prevent relapse. 8 steps there for us to give. So anyway, if you guys think you're at risk of relapsing, please talk to somebody. Talk to one of us. Talk to your sponsor. And we can get through this. All right? Thank you, guys.